Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast. Today I'm with Buddy Whittington. He is one of the members of the trio Texas Scratch. They are three born-and-bred Texas guitarists: Jim Suhler from Dallas, Buddy Whittington, who I have here from Fort Worth, and Vince Converse from the Houston area. And they will be releasing a self-titled debut album called Texas Scratch, available from Cordo Valley Records. And there's a very interesting story behind that. It's actually been recorded quite some time ago. Would you love to tell us a little bit about the legend of this album?
Well, I'll do the best I can. Like I say, it's been so long ago, I've probably forgotten more than I ever knew about it. But Jim and I went up to Dover, New Jersey to record some songs with Vince Converse, who was already there, with Ben Elliott, the producer and the engineer, who has since passed on. Like I say, a lot's happened since we did this. But we got up there, and it was originally, we were up there working under the auspices of Arnie Goodman of Blue Storm Music. And we recorded, we spent a week and a half or so recording it, and got some good songs down. And then everybody went home, and then we just kept wondering what was going to happen next. And it took a good while before we hear, well, there's a little talk about the album. And it was like anytime there was any kind of, just a little burble about it or whatever, we would be excited that it was coming out. And it went on for like 14 years. And in the meantime, I had put out another album, put some of the same songs on my personal album that we had on Texas Scratch, just because I didn't think the album was going to come out. But now it's out on Cordo Valley and everything's rocking. So we're in gear and trying to make it work.
That's great. I had a chance to listen to it, which is a really, really cool perk about being a podcaster, is getting some stuff early. And it rocks. Like, I really love the blues and blues rock genre. But how did you get into that? And how did you decide to start guitar?
Well, I'm an old man now, but I started playing guitar when I was eight years old. I had a sister that was 10 years older than me, that when the Beatles played on Ed Sullivan, we were all around the black and white TV, you know what I mean? And my parents were big fans of Western swing music. And there are a lot of Saturday afternoon TV shows on with, from the Big D Jamboree and the Cowtown Jamboree and the Wilburn Brothers show and all that stuff. And we would watch that too, I started playing, like I say, about 8 years old, and wound up playing out around Jacksboro Highway, a lot of places kids shouldn't have been at that time, but I did it for a long time. And long story short, I wound up in John Mayall's band for 15 years. That was a very enriching experience for me, and it was great until he decided he was going to kick everybody out of the nest and rework some things. And we still get along. John, as a matter of fact, John will be 90 years old the day after Thanksgiving. So I got to get in touch with him and send him a card or something. But, we've been playing. We've played so long now that we don't really know how to do anything else, And Jim is another guy that, like I say, he's got sort of the same sort of background that I do, as he's been with George Thorogood for so long as his guitar player, and doing his own gigs with his band Monkey Beat. And they, it's just something we've all done for a long time. Now Vince, I don't know Vince as well, but I know he's from Houston, and I remember him being in a band called Sunset Heights, but he was just a kid. He was, I bet he wasn't 20 years old yet, and he is currently living in Denver, I believe. And we haven't gotten together to rehearse any of the songs. Me and Jim have a couple of a couple of gigs coming up that we're going to go out and promote the record with. But Vince is not going to be with us because he's not in our area. You know what I mean? But we plan to get that going as soon as we get a little more organized.
Can you talk a little bit about which guitars you used on the album, and also what are some guitars that are your favorites?
Well, I've got an old Fender Stratocaster that I've had for a long, long time. It was a '63. It's kind of like Johnny Cash's Cadillac. It's one piece at a time kind of thing, you know. And I've just played it until I've worn parts out, and I'll go put a new neck on or a new pickup in, you know, stuff like that. And I've got some guitars by a guy that's taken really good care of me over the years named Scott Lentz, Lentz, out in California, that builds some really nice, all kinds of offerings, really. But I've got, I have a couple of but he has two S styles, as he calls them. And then I have a couple of T styles, and then I have one he calls an HSL, which is a hybrid Scott Lentz. Great guitars, and I've been hooked up with Dr. Z amps since probably 1995 or so, and we get along good. And he keeps everything working for me. So you know, I've got an old Gibson 335 that I play some on the album, and I believe I might have played a little bit of a few Les Paul tracks on it too, but just pretty much just the general stuff.
I noticed you have some songs that are to your writing credit on the album. What was that like, being able to write music and have it be on the album, and then also knowing that it's going to be on this upcoming album?
Well, I mean, like I say, we have all been writing songs for some time, and having varying degrees of success. I mean, you know, I had a couple that I wrote on several of John Mayall's records where he would let me and the drummer generally would co-write something to have it on there, you know. And it's, you know, it's been pretty much what we do. Having some success at it would be really great, as far as in a big way. But the music business is so quirky now. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, who's going to ever hear it? I get so excited when somebody will, you know, email me and say, "Hey man, I would love a copy of this record with this song about it. I got the itch, but I ain't got the scratch. I want to hear that song again." And I said, "Well, here, let me fix you right up." But like I say, my original record that I did with it, I had an album called Six String Svengali, and it was a pretty good little record. But it was on a label in England, and it's out of print now. So I'm letting Texas Scratch take up where it left off, you know, and hopefully we'll all have some success with that.
Well, it's fantastic, so I can't imagine you wouldn't.
Sure hope we do. And then, you know, and like I say, we still enjoy getting together and playing that kind of stuff. I mean, there's everybody calls me a blues guy, and I guess to a degree I am. I love blues music, and I love the straight, you know, the regular 1-4-5 blues and shuffles and all that stuff. But I have to, once in a while, I have to write something that's got maybe a little more to it, in the same genre, not necessarily a traditional blues, although I like that too.
Briefly mentioned the Beatles, but who else, like groups or single artists, inspired you growing up?
Oh, I loved Roy Nichols with Merle Haggard. I loved Don Rich with Buck Owens. I loved John Nitzinger. We have a Nitzinger song on Texas Scratch called Louisiana Cockfight. He was a local Fort Worth guy that had a record deal on Capitol Records, which I thought was amazing because it was the same label the Beatles were on, and a guy from Fort Worth had it, you know. And he's a great songwriter and player and singer. John Nitzinger, Nitzinger. And we did that song basically just as kind of a hats off to him for because we listened to him for so long and so much.
This might be tricky, but if you could play any other instrument other than guitar, what would you want to try?
You know, if I could play a Hammond organ, I mean, I'm not just not talking about like the living room kind. I would have to play a B3 in a Leslie, like a real old school Hammond player. I know several that are still around, and we, unfortunately, Roger Cotton over in England was our Hammond player in the Buddy Whittington band over there, and he has passed on, and we really haven't got anybody to replace it yet. So, we've just been talking about maybe doing a trio tour over there. and hopefully maybe if we can, maybe add a part-time keyboard player,
Organ is such an interesting instrument, and I mean it just takes so much. It takes so
Yeah,
much to play.
it's just such a soulful sound that
Hmm.
when that organ overdrives that Leslie and you get everything breaking up just right, and it's almost like all the everything that the cook puts in the soup pot is beginning to bubble. I really love it, and wish I could do it, but I could never do it. Good to dream about though.
Yep. But you do play guitar very well, and some people dream of that. So
Well, like I say, I've been doing it a long time. At this point, I'm like, I sure spent a long time learning how to do that, and as for as long as I've done it, I should be a lot better at it because there's some great ones out there now. There's some wonderful players out there now, and I feel like I've learned a little bit about it, but at this stage of the game, I should be farther along than I am. But I'm not through yet.
that's right. There's always something new to learn, right?
Yep.
What is one of your favorite parts about putting together an album or touring or anything musical, really?
Just getting an idea. We're talking about the Ain't Got the Scratch song. When I was 16 years old, there was a music store I used to hang around, and the Ernie Ball String Company used to have these little cards that they would put between the strings of guitars that were hanging up in the store to keep people from messing with them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And this one card, I picked a guitar up one day, and there's a card between the strings, and this card said, I got the itch for a beer, but I ain't got the scratch. And I hung on to that line. Like I say, I'm 67 years old. And of course, I did it. This has been 2011 when I did the album, but I hung on to all these little blurb things that I picked up over the years. I'll eventually make a song out of them, come good or bad. And sometimes I wonder if I've got any left. I have to dig way back in the old memory banks to see if I can come up with something that might be something somebody would want to hear. But that's a big part of it. And then getting together with some guys in the studio, and making it work and making it into a tune and starting to record it and getting good sounds. That's a big thing for me is making sure the guitars all sound good,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody gets in there. It's difficult these days because we've been playing loud all our lives, and now nobody wants you to play loud. They want you to play quiet and let the sound man make you loud, which is a completely foreign idea to me. But that's the way it is now.
That is interesting. I would want to play loud too.
Well, we came up when PA systems in clubs and stuff were, just something to run the vocals through, just something to sing through so someone could hear you over the rest of the band. But now the PA has become, the sound system has become what everything has to be routed through to get out to the audience. And if you're on stage and your amp is louder than the guys trying to get you through a microphone into the speakers that go, out on it, like they say, it's just, if it's too loud, you're just too old. But I understand the thing about what they want to do, but it sure makes it hard to be able to get a good sound that moves some air and makes you feel good about what you're playing, and without having to worry about keeping it down so low.
What is something that you wish you knew at the beginning of your creative journey?
How many great players that already walked the earth before me? Because I look at these people now and I go, what was I thinking? Did I really think when I was 8 years old that I'm going to go buy this guitar and I'm going to make a living with it all my life, And, I got guys like Tommy Emmanuel walking around on the earth, and I just go, well, can't keep up with them, but you just have to do the best you can and kind of put your own stamp on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is such a great point. Like regardless of your genre that you play in or instrument that you play in, just going out there and making your own mark, because you never know who you could inspire. There might be an 8-year-old out there going, I want to be just like Buddy Whittington.
Boy, I tell you, I'd be the first one to advise them against that. These kids always come up and say, what can I do to play like you? And I'd say do your homework. That would be that would be my first suggestion. and worry about playing later. But sometimes you just can't do it. Sometimes it grabs a hold of you, and that's what you got to do.
Well, in addition to doing your homework, what other advice do you have for young people who would want to get into the music business?
Be careful about anything you might sign, like contracts or anything like that might come back at you down the road. And signing releases. All these people want to use your material. A lot of them would like to do a show using your original material just so they don't have to pay any publishing for any covers that you might be playing. Try to keep from spending a lot of money or any money at all or any more than it takes to get the show on the road. But they'll give you this release to sign because I, Buddy Whittington, solemnly swear, blah, 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 that throughout the universe in all perpetuity that you can do whatever you want to with my likeness and blah, 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 and before you know it, you got something that's out there in the world. And if anything ever did happen for you, that might rear its ugly head.
It sounds like there's a lot of things that people need to know about music business and law to really protect themselves.
I know some young guys that have backed off of a musical career. And like I know a guy he's in Nashville at what's the college in Nashville? I can't think of the name of it, but he's taking a music business degree, and another guy in California doing the same thing. It's all stuff that people should have been paying more attention to a long time ago before. It's like, here, let me sign you up over here, son. Gonna make you a big star.
Yeah. Definitely the industry has changed a lot.
It's so difficult now because there's, you can't go buy a new car that has a CD player in it. And we don't really know I guess the phone is the next thing that you gotta have connect a USB into your radio in your car so you can play your songs on your phone. Nobody can really go out and buy a hard copy of anything, and it's all digital. And generally, it can also be picked up for nothing somewhere, which is another bad thing because nobody's making like a third of a cent for each play you get on the radio. I get all these checks from ASCAP, and they're ASCAP and the thing oversee the PR Performing Rights Society. And generally they'll be, real low amounts. And I'll have plays. It'll show me where my plays are all over the world. Like Vietnam, South Africa. People I can't believe anybody even has ever heard of me there. But, I got a third of a cent from them for listening. So, it's pretty ugly, really.
Yeah. I've heard, not just with musicians, but also with, there was the actor strike, just streaming in general.
And using their likeness in another medium, And they're trying to fix it to where, hey, you can't do that without letting me know about it or my company or my lawyers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been that it never got that big for me at this point, but I know there's people that it has,
Yeah. It definitely sounds like there's pros and cons to streaming. There's a lot of convenience, but I definitely wish it was more fair for the artists across the board.
I would hope that at some point it will be, but I don't know. It doesn't look too promising right now, unless you're somebody like Taylor Swift that can go, hey, iTunes, don't sell any of my stuff. Take it all off. Or let me re-record it and put it out again. But it's not the same, the same record that you are selling now that I can sell. It's a big mess.
I actually love CDs. Like I like being able to flip through the books and surprisingly enough, my car actually has a CD player and it's not even that old. It's just the way the car was made. So I have CDs in my car and not too many people do.
Right. I have a couple. As a matter of fact, I have a Texas Scratch in my car right now because it's been so long since we recorded it. We need to get familiar with it again so we can go out and play the gigs, and I have a few of them in there, but, I'd sit and listen to YouTube more than anything, looking up old stuff that how things sounded and how they were recorded and what they used to get those sounds and all that. That's very important to me. That's a great way to do it.
Do you have any favorite after concert, after show meals?
A good Mexican place is always in order, but I tell you, I'm to the point in life now where my doc goes, go home and go to bed, wake up and, eat 2 eggs and only 1 egg yolk. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. I'm trying to stay with it, but it's hard to do when they won't let you have fun,
Yeah. You seem like you might be a barbecue kind of a guy.
Well, my dad was in the meat business growing up, and we had a lot of barbecue, and we had some form of beef every night because he would bring it home from work, and as a result of that, I'm not that crazy about it as long as I can have a hamburger every now and then, or I like to say a brisket sandwich or something like that, chopped beef sandwich, something like that. My wife, on the other hand, she loves her barbecue and she loves to go get a steak every now and then, But I'm trying my best to stay out of it. It's just it's not natural.
It's tough, because you've got like an adrenaline rush after a concert and maybe you're starving,
Well, it's either eat before you go on. They used to kill me when we were out with John Mayall. We would be in Sardinia or something like that. These wonderful gigs, beautiful places. And they would take us out to where we were going to play and take us in and just feed us until we couldn't move. You know what I mean? It's like, and then, okay, now you go play, we're great, and it made it very difficult. Or down in Argentina, we would go down there, the barbecue places down there, what do they call them? I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, it's where you go down there and they give you the little spinner it's got a green thing and a red thing. If you put the green thing out, they keep bringing meat. And if you put the red thing out, they'll finally stop. Churrasco.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I think that's the name of it. And we did that several times. And it was like, so how's the gig? It was like, are you ready for the gig now? Like, well, can we go take a nap first? Pretty rough.
Oh, goodness. I can imagine that would be pretty hard to try and jam out when you're ready to take a nap after a huge meal. Yeah.
It's always best to wait if you can, but sometimes it's difficult because, the old blood sugar starts getting low and you start getting tired. You need at least 2 or 3 cups of coffee to get it going. And I don't do that as much as I used to either. I used to drink a lot of coffee at night, and then until I finally got to where I couldn't go to sleep, but for years it didn't bother me a bit to have 3 or 4 cups of coffee on a gig, go home, go straight to bed. But now I can't do it. So things change as we become vintage people.
I like that term, vintage people.
Well, it's better than old fogies.
Indeed. Well, a couple more questions. These have nothing to do with music. Well, sort of. One is, do you have a favorite note or a favorite key to play in?
I'd like to be like Ray Charles, who said, what keys in? He goes, I got them all. He said, I'll play whichever one you want. I like the guitar keys, the ones where you can play with open strings in your chords and stuff. I know some really good jazz guys, world-class jazz players, and I'll get called to do a gig with these guys once in a while. And like I have a good friend up in Joplin, Missouri, Johnny Rose. He taught me how to play the Christmas song in the key of C, which is so it kept it all easy, And I would start rehearsing that here at my house in October or so. So I'd be ready to go play it on a couple of these Christmas parties. And then I go play with the jazz guys. They go, okay, the Christmas song in E flat, first song right out of the chute. That gives you a new appreciation for knowing how to play in all those modes and in those keys where you can play those melodies like that.
Yeah. E flat, oof. On any instrument, that's not a fun one to play in.
Well, a lot of the horn players play that, and B flat and B flat, and a lot like Hendrix and Stevie Ray and a lot of the great guitar players tune their guitars down a half step to E flat to get that ominous sound, and also to make it easier for the singers to hit the notes. That's a big thing, but it just always makes everything sound like Black Sabbath to me to do that. I mean, makes everything sound ominous.
Last question. If you could go to dinner with any creative person, whether it's a musician, artist, author, actor, who would it be?
Well, that's a tough one. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Probably not a musician. You know what I mean? Because we get together. Musicians talk to each other a lot. But I'll just leave that one open.
Open invitation. You'll go to dinner with anybody, right?
With anybody. Sign me up.
Oh, goodness. Well, buddy, thank you so much for being on the show, and congratulations for your band having their new album out, Texas Scratch, self-titled.
Thank you so much for having me. That's great. And hopefully something will become of it. You know, maybe we'll all live to fight another day.
There you go. Excellent. And listeners, please check the show notes for how to purchase the album. And if they happen to be coming to your town, definitely pick up some tickets because they really rock. As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes, or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.